Bitcoin with privacy is a freedom technology. It's the best money the world has ever seen. Bitcoin without privacy is 1984 coin.
Wow.
It's panopticon coin.
Oh my gosh.
By definition, it is worse than the existing system. In that case, it's better to use cash.
Thank you, Obi, for coming and joining me on the pod on kind of last moment. We're in Atlanta right now for the Atlanta Bitcoin conference, and I didn't realize you would be here. So we kind of impromptu decided to do this interview just yesterday.
And I'm very glad we did.
Me too.
Well, I think I am. Let's wait till the end of the interview to see
we'll see how it goes. I have a feeling we're going to have a great time.
But right now, I feel good about it.
Perfect. No, I'm super glad we were able to, because you've been on my list for quite a while. You know, this is going to be the first, my podcast guest list.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I have my
Not like
I think
hit list or something like that.
Oh yeah, I have an Excel
NSA,
spreadsheet.
secret, deep undercover agent.
I have an Excel spreadsheet of my dream guests, and you are almost certainly on. You're definitely on it. You know why?
You say the nicest things. Okay, but I'll take it. Thank you.
You'll take it. Well, it's interesting because the frame of the show is that. So I helped Casey Rodomore launch the Ordinals protocol. Like I did comms for him when he was first getting started, and so that's sort of my background. And after that, I got very deep in the sort of new Bitcoin season 2, as they call it, right? The new wave of Bitcoin layer 2s and all of this technology that's being developed. But I remember before that, obviously Lightning was the main thing that everyone was talking about, but also Fedimint was sort of pre that wave. And I'm quite good friends with Andy Pitt from Ego Death. So I remember learning quite a bit about you guys from her as well. So you guys, you've been on my list for a while.
And there's a funny story. Casey Rodomore and Ordinals has, especially early on, an interesting set of links to Fedimint.
Does it?
It's a whole... Yeah,
you have to share it. That's too juicy.
So, I'll give you some background, and we can go back further, but I was running a Bitcoin exchange before getting involved with Fedimint, and then later Fedi.
Getting involved with Fedimint, you were running the exchange.
I ran a Bitcoin exchange in the UK. It started in 2013, and it went on for nearly a decade. It went on to become the UK's largest Bitcoin exchange, one of the largest in Europe, first to be regulated. It was called CoinFloor, and we sold it. It was split into two at the end. We sold half to Coin Corner in UK for the UK part, and then we had this international derivatives business, which was sold to a number of Chicago prop trading and market makers.
Makes sense.
And it did very well. Long history, one of the first to be regulated in Europe. We were the only exchange to do proof of reserves, which is a big issue around eCash and so on.
Totally.
And we had this continual record of doing that. Anyway, we ended up selling it, a number of firsts. And one of the reasons I sold it was a number of conversations and realizations made me realize that we as an industry needed to find ways to help people leave third-party custodial platforms like exchanges, because more and more people were moving towards that, and self-custody, after nearly a decade of trying, wasn't going to cut it for most people.
Right.
And we can drill into that why. So I started looking for solutions to get people off exchanges, but still provide them an exchange-like experience. And that journey took me to many places, but one was the Hackers Congress in Parallel Police. Parallel Society, the translation.
In Prague? Is that the one in Prague? Okay.
Yeah. And that's the meaning. Parallel Police means parallel society. And a chance encounter I bumped into these luminaries of privacy and cypherpunk, European cypherpunk like Frank Braun and the Smuggler. And then I found effectively their protege, a guy called Eric Syrian. Or El Syrian. And he was the inventor of Fedimint. I was thinking about various ideas. One idea was maybe getting people to use mobile phones and somehow turn mobile phones into hardware wallets.
You were thinking UX mostly. You weren't necessarily thinking protocol level.
And making it inexpensive, etc. And then he very politely explained to me why that idea wouldn't work. And I was very grateful for him, because I could have gone down a bunny hole there.
Right. You could have wasted time.
I could have wasted a lot of time. And then I asked him, okay, fine, thanks for that. What are you working on? He goes, I'm working on this project called Fedimint. And he explained it. And I started listening to him. And the more I listened to him, I realized this is actually the thing.
The thing. When was this? Where are we in time and space?
I think this was 2021.
Okay.
2021.
Okay.
Late 2021 or early 2022.
And he had at this point, had he built anything, or was he just presenting on the idea?
He'd already built it, and in October 2022, just so 4 years ago, earlier this year, he did the first eCash transaction on Bitcoin. And so it's memorialized, and now every year, starting last year and again this year, we celebrate eCash Coffee Day because he bought a cup of coffee.
Oh my gosh!
With eCash on Bitcoin.
Wow!
And it's a reminder, not just about that was the beginning of eCash, but it's also a reminder that we as Bitcoiners need to keep remembering that privacy is important. Private is key.
Yeah.
It's not just about private keys, it's private is key. And many people are forgetting the actual reason that Bitcoin exists.
Oh, 100%.
Is because of the cypherpunks.
Right.
And these are people...
And censorship resistance.
But the people that are inspired and pushed this space forward, private communication and private money, were the cypherpunks. And there are people, many of the names, Adam Back, Jeff Garzik, many people... WikiLeaks came out of this, Signal came out of this, Bitcoin came out of this group. And they were inspired by a paper by a guy called Eric Hughes in 1983 called the Cypherpunk Manifesto. And many people misremember it as cypherpunks write code. But that's actually not the point of the Cypherpunk Manifesto. The word code is mentioned 3 times in this manifesto. The word privacy is mentioned 17 times. And the first sentence, and it's repeated multiple times, is that privacy is essential for an open society in an electronic age.
Interesting.
And it's nice to have quite private. It's essential.
Like privacy is a requirement basically for free societies.
For free societies. If a free society, you need privacy, especially in the electronic age.
Can you share a little bit more practically about like why that is? I mean, I think a lot of people listening are going to resonate with that, but like really like hit home, like list, like why exactly is privacy a requirement for free society, and how are you defining that?
Okay. So let's take money. If I have money and I have the ability to transact with other people, but people can see my transactions. It doesn't matter if I have self-custody because, in fact, if I'm the government, it's like, thank you very much. All of the custody risk is being handled by you, but I still have the ability to govern you because I know exactly what you're doing. So if you want to have something that's a freedom technology, it needs to be 2 things. It needs to be decentralized and it needs to be secure. If it is, and this is where, unfortunately, I hope there are more, you call them layer 2s. I'm not sure if we consider ourselves a layer 2, but remember this, and this because it's just basics, that you need to be 2 things. You need to be decentralized and you need to be secure. If you don't have either of those, you're fragile or you can be subverted. So imagine if you're centralized but secure. And we'll go into what we mean by secure.
And there's a lot of centralized but secure happening. That's probably the majority of like
most
tech in our age.
Centralized and secure. So let's say you have some sort of roll up that, and always ask people if you get a chance. I mean, I don't want to teach you how to suck eggs, but it'd be really interesting if you ask the question, what is your vision of the end state? Not just how do you get a little bit further or 10x better or 100x better. When you ask that, a lot of people just don't think about beyond just getting it 10 times better than today. But where does your technology end up? So at 8 billion users and probably another 12 billion AIs, let's say 20 billion entities using Bitcoin, for example, how does that look to you? And if you ask most of these, their expectation is their system will keep scaling up so everybody in the world is using their one roll-up. yes, there might be others, but their desire is for everybody to use their one rollup.
That's right.
So, and they all talk about how it's trustless, so you're going to be able to go back on Bitcoin and so on, and all this sort of great stuff. But if everybody in the world is using that one rollup, plus all the AIs, and then it's a centralized entity, that's going to be a incredibly big and powerful infrastructure. Because it doesn't matter because I can trust you to go on chain. Well, as a bad actor, I can go and locate you because the amount of energy you use up and the amount of resource you use up, you're going to be very easily locatable and tell you to shut off. I won't be able to know exactly, even if you have full privacy, I won't be able to know who is doing what. But I don't need to know. I just turn you off.
Right.
And then everybody using your system will have to spend years to get back on chain because you've got this small country lane, which is the Bitcoin blockchain, and you've got this 5,000 lane superhighway, which is the roll-up. And all of that traffic is going to have to trustlessly go back into the blockchain. The problem with that is you're going to go you're going to go back into the blockchain in order of the fees you're willing to pay. So i.e. in order of wealth, because if you're storing $1 million, you're happy to pay $10,000 to go on chain.
Right.
But if you're storing $10, the maximum you can pay is $10. So the people that you're trying to help the most with roll-ups will be the last to get on chain, which means that they will have to wait the longest. And there's a concept of time value of money. The longer I have to wait to be able to access my money, the less valuable it is to me.
Right.
So again, the wealthiest people will get onto chain immediately, and then they'll go back to the people who are having to wait months, if not years, and say, hey, I can give you some of my money and take your place in the line, but I'll give you pennies on the dollar.
So this is kind of like we're circling around, I feel like, one of the most key questions of this conversation, at least from my perspective, given the sort of theme of the show, which is like, okay, so how does Fedimint...
And don't forget it's Casey Rodermar. I'm going to explain.
I'll definitely make sure we call back. But this sort of, kind of relevant question, like where is Fedimint positioned amongst other quote unquote L2s? And I think this is a good question. It's actually on my list. Like, is Fedimint an L2? What is it? It's clearly a scaling solution. I don't know how you define it. I'm actually not really sure it matters, but where is it positioned amongst these others kind of technologies? How does it compare? But before we get into that, really quickly, just like, what is Fedimint? Like, how does, like, broad overview of this architecture, this eCash architecture on Bitcoin, like, how does it work? Like TLDR.
So Fedimint is a portmanteau. It's a contraction of the term Federated Chaumian Mint. So, or Chaumian eCash Mint. So it's an eCash mint, and there are on Bitcoin now there are two protocols that are well known. There's one called Cashew, which is a non-federated single server eCash Mint protocol, which is similar to the original eCash protocol that was invented over 40 years ago. That was
also like kind of a more centralized model, basically.
It's a centralized server, and
but I mean, back in the day when Chom,
he invented
like
the idea
for banks, basically.
It's a 40-year-old idea. It's not a new idea to have an eCash Mint. He did it backed by fiat in a bank,
right?
So
pre-Bitcoin, way pre-Bitcoin.
Way pre-Bitcoin, the internet was still, very, very nascent as well. But it was still very forward-thinking, and he backed it by Bitcoin and by US dollars in the bank. And when someone deposited to an eCash Mint, the bank account of the eCash Mint, it was DigiCash was the company he formed to do this. The DigiCash corporation would issue eCash notes, tokens, and they're literally a file per note, and it would be a random string to represent a unique value, and you'll be issued a number of notes.
So it's basically, like, in a nutshell, the original Chaumian e-mint idea is just essentially like you have some centralized authority at that time that governs a peg, basically, between whatever the currency is.
It governs a peg, I think if you have an intuition, imagine there is a fairground that you go to.
Right.
And you go to this fairground, and you walk to the entrance, and there's a kiosk at the entrance. And at the entrance, you would give them some cash, And in return, they would give you tickets to use within the fairground.
Mm-hmm.
And on the fairground, you can use on any ride. You can buy any food.
Right.
You can take some of your notes and give them to your friends. Your friends were very unlucky on the one-armed bandits, and they run out of cash. You can share it around.
Okay, great.
Now,
yeah.
From the point of view of the kiosk, they're holding all the money that's being used within the fairground.
Right.
But they have no knowledge of they have no visibility on how the transactions are happening.
And they don't really care. Yeah, they don't really care how
and they
the
don't really
tickets
care.
are.
But
Right.
it's clearly you can have the intuition that once they've issued the tokens, there is complete privacy beyond that point.
Right.
The only way you lose privacy is when you deposit in and you deposit out of the
But
mint.
this is solved by blind signing.
And this is solved by blind
And that
signing.
was really the key innovation, was this concept of blind signing. That was an Eric innovation, or was this a Chaumian?
That was David
That was
Chaum
Chaum's
innovation
original
from Ford.
innovation.
Yeah, blind signing.
Okay. So he was privacy minded.
He was privacy minded, but he created a system that was centralized.
Right. It was centralized,
so centralized but private. Yes.
Right.
So when we say decentralized and secure on the secure side, especially when it comes to money, there's or speech or money. You can get security in two ways on this world.
Mm-hmm.
You can get it through power
Mm-hmm.
or privacy.
Hmm.
So if you have power, military power, martial power, your Jet Li or something like that,
Yeah.
from the movies, you have monetary power,
Right.
you have political power,
Yeah.
you have influence with certain key people. Whatever it means, some form of power, then you can use that power to give yourself security.
Yep.
The problem with that is you have to be powerful to have power.
Right.
The vast majority of people
You basically have to have money. I mean, or
money or
political power, or
political
whatever.
power in a
Right.
smaller context of a town. You're the
Right.
biggest guy or the girl. But you have to have some sort of power. If you don't have power, which is the majority of people,
Right.
then you cannot use power by definition to give yourself security.
Or freedom. I was thinking also, like, in order to really have true freedom, you need to either have power or privacy. I mean, maybe these things are the same.
Freedom, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
To have security, you need to be able to. You need to have you have to have either power or privacy. So for the rest of the world, the majority of people,
Yeah.
if you want security,
Mm-hmm.
then you need privacy.
Mm-hmm.
You may think,
Or freedom would be another way to say that. You could say it
if
either
you
way.
want,
Right.
if you want freedom,
Yeah.
then you need privacy.
Privacy or power.
Yeah. I guess the issue, freedom, you need two things. You need security, and you need you need some sort of anti-fragility. And so and we display that in the Bitcoin context as decentralization.
Right.
It's very hard to shut you down.
Right.
Because even if I have privacy, but I can be shut down, then it doesn't matter if I have privacy.
Right.
And if I can't be shut down, but I have no privacy, I can still be located and wrench attacked or punished or so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I don't have security. And if you just think about wrench attacks, which are on the rise,
Right.
I can defend myself against them because I've got my own private army. Then I don't have to worry about it. For example, I live in a fortress, in a private condo with bodyguards and security at the gate. I'm a martial arts expert, and I have a personal sort of bodyguard that follows me everywhere.
Right.
That can give me security. I can be completely transparent because I'm okay. The alternative is, and it's much cheaper, is just be completely have complete privacy.
Yep.
And
exactly.
so that no one even knows. Think about Satoshi Nakamoto.
It's the only protection you have if you don't have the ability to physically, like, defend yourself against violence.
Or monetarily defend yourself, and which means you're paying for other people to physically defend yourself.
Right.
You're right. And think about Satoshi Nakamoto.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine he or she's alive, and tomorrow they reveal themselves in a way where people believe that they exist.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think will happen the day after?
He'll be killed. Yeah.
Or he will have multiple court cases put against him.
Yeah. It'll just be a
He'll be in
shit
court
show.
for the rest of his life, on
Right.
high for the rest of his life.
Life ruined.
But as a private, because he or she retains privacy,
Right.
they're secure.
The privacy is the protection.
So
privacy is the
protection.
only protection that, like, you really have, especially, and the bigger the foe you're coming up against, the more, the less likely you'll be able to protect yourself by any means other than privacy, right? I mean, yeah.
And so taking it back to Chami and Ikesh and this fairground analogy, you go to the fairground, you technically are using this mechanism called blinded signatures, but conceptually you can think about that as going to the kiosk, but the kiosk window is blacked over so that the kiosk operator can't actually see who they're transacting with. They just can see money is being provided and a piece of and some blank pieces of paper.
Right.
Other than the fact that they've each got some random number on them. And then they take the blank piece of paper and the money, and they've received $10, for example, and they receive 10 pieces of paper, and they get their stamp, which is their signature, and they stamp the 10, they take their $1 stamp and stamp the 10 pieces of paper that were passed to them with the $1 signature stamp, and then return the $1 signature stamp back through the kiosk, but not knowing who they're dealing with, and that's what blinded signature allows. It allows them to sign without knowing who they're signing for, because they're blinded while they're signing. And then that person now has 10 pieces of paper that have been stamped by the kiosk operator at the mint with the $1 signature stamp on them. They can now use that within the fairground. They can give it to other people. Doesn't really matter. In fact, I actually have in my jacket here one. I should give you one of my notes that you can use and play around with and actually use on Fedi. And
I think I actually got one from Alex Lewin yesterday. He was like, "You're interviewing Obi. I've got to give you this."
You've got one, so that's great. The infection,
it's spreading.
Is spreading. Yeah.
Yes.
he Fedi pilled you. And then you can use that around the fairground, and you have the same privacy of interaction, but you also have the privacy that they don't know who you, even the kiosk operator didn't know who you were at the point of minting the coins.
And this is substantively distinct from, any other L2 in quotes architecture, including, by the way, Lightning. In your opinion, I mean, would you maintain that this is Fedimint's edge is privacy?
There is two edges. Lightning is retains one of the edges, but most of the others don't. Which is that you have very high levels of privacy, ignoring timing attacks and so on, which are always hard to deal with. You have cryptographically near perfect privacy. Lightning doesn't approach that, but it's way better than being on chain, but it's not cryptographically perfect privacy.
It's not perfect.
There are some very interesting areas of research by one of at this point in time by one of the other protocols. So Robin Linus, inventor of BitVM, he is also one of the, unfortunately, rarer and rarer breed of people in the Bitcoin space who are very concerned about privacy.
He is, yeah.
And he has a protocol called ZK Coins, which, and he was inspired by eCash. Can I have eCash, which was more trustless?
Yep.
And so he's worked on it. It's still a research project, but I'm very excited to see how that progresses. So is Eric. We don't really we think that at this point in time, using a federated approach is the lowest trust way of providing privacy. But privacy is non-negotiable. And the problem is a lot of people think privacy is okay to lose privacy if you have a way of trustlessly going on chain. And my point is that if you lose privacy, none of it else matters. It doesn't matter a jot.
So in your kind of assessment of trade-offs, you guys are kind of willing to maybe give up a little bit on the, permissionless exit side, which people often talk about, in order to gain perfect privacy, where maybe Lightning has permissionless exit, but not perfect privacy.
Lightning's privacy is still way better than most. So I think that's so they haven't given up so much on privacy.
Right.
But Lightning, most of the others have given up, have very little, or they have the same level of privacy as using Bitcoin on main chain, or they have worse privacy than using Bitcoin on main chain. It's completely transparent, and in that case, you've forgotten the reason why literally Bitcoin was in and the whole space started. Privacy is not a nice to have; it's essential for an open society in the electronic age. If you should reread the manifesto, privacy is mentioned 17 times. It is the main point. So if you give up the main points, then you've forgotten. Bitcoin with privacy. So your answer the question, why is it important? Bitcoin with privacy is a freedom technology. It's the best money the world has ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin without privacy is 1984 coin.
Wow.
It's panopticon coin.
Oh my
By
gosh.
definition, it is worse than the existing system. In that case, it's better to use cash.
I mean, it makes sense.
Because you have
it's so traceable.
Because you have some level of privacy. It's worse than the existing system if you lose privacy. So this is, and I'd be happy to debate this with anybody. But this is, and I'll just show them the Cypherpunk Manifesto and say, read that and let's start the conversation.
Do you know why when Bitcoin was, I mean, I'm curious about this history and I don't know if anyone really knows the answer to this question, but obviously the people who invented Bitcoiners were concerned with privacy, but they invented a system that in practical reality, to your point, is not very private. How did that happen?
I don't know what went through Satoshi's mind.
Do you have like a thesis?
But I will say that that even Satoshi talked about the ideas of and admitted the shortcomings of Bitcoin and the desire to add privacy and to it. And he tried as best he could by finding a solution that solved the double spend problem, but was pseudonymous.
Right.
But many of his writings show that he or she was aware of the fact that that wasn't good enough and more work had to be done. Right. If you look at the cypherpunk, the cryptography mailing list where it was published, the white paper was published. I think even within 8 or 9 days, I think it was James Davies, was one of the people who responded, and he immediately said, look, for this, 2 problems with this doesn't scale and you need privacy. And everybody remembers how Finney talking about the need for Bitcoin banks on top of Bitcoin about 1.5 years to 2 years later, 9 days later, before Bitcoin actually launched in January, I think it was early, the 8th or 9th of November, James Davies explained that for this to scale, you'll need something called Bitcoin banks. He called them binks. And let's call them binks. And you'll need thousands of them, so that's decentralized. You'll need some sort of net settlement layer to settle between these. And for privacy, they should be Chaumian eCash mints. So this was already theorized days after this came out to scale this and to add privacy. So he was basically describing eCash mints and Lightning Network was the way to scale this 9 days after Bitcoin came out. This was not something that people had forgotten, but they realized this was a really strong base primitive. And the base, you want to be as trustless as you can. But privacy was an essential bit that needed to be added on top.
When do you think consumers, particularly in the West, and I think that this maybe leads into a conversation about like who actually cares about this technology right now, like who is the most important market for this right now? We'll get into that in a moment. But, in the West, there's been sort of it's been notoriously difficult to get people to care about privacy, I think, in tech. They often will choose convenience over privacy, the average consumer. Do you think that's going to change? What needs to happen in order for that to change? What are your general thoughts about that?
I think it will change, and the reason it will change is because governments will continue to govern and regulators will continue to regulate.
So it'll get worse, basically.
And so it will get, throughout history, it will get worse and worse because there are challenges in economies that requires more control to correct those challenges. More control requires more
infringements on freedom.
Infringements on freedom. And you're seeing that. You're seeing that in the European Union, the chat control protocol. And it's communication and money. The chat control protocol is an initiative whereby, if passed, the EU will have the right, will mandate that any instant messaging client operating in the EU with EU users would have to provide a backdoor to the EU authorities to monitor every single message that happens within the EU or between someone who is in the EU at the time, even if they're visiting, with someone outside of the EU. So if you're talking to someone on a group call and one of them is in the EU, that conversation, and it has to be every instant message package. So it's not just Twitter, it's WhatsApp, it's Telegram, and it's also Signal.
Really? Signal?
So Signal is threatened to leave the EU, and that will mean even someone who's in the EU won't be able to
access it.
And you won't be able to.
Could they with like some sort of like VPN or something? Or like what would
I don't know if there's ways around it, but they've threatened to at least officially leave.
That's wild.
That would be on an individual level, but on an organizational level, they would have to leave because their system is structured in such a way where they have no ability to remove privacy. So it's not an option.
Right.
But what I can tell you is if chat control protocol goes through, anybody operating the day after it goes through, you no longer need to be in any doubt. They must have backdoors, or they have to be in contravention to the law.
How is this defensible? Like, how is this flying at in democratic
it's the various
countries?
boogeymen. It's proliferation avoidance. So, nuclear proliferation avoidance, financial terrorist financing.
So they're coming up with justifications.
Or the other one that's become more and more popular is CSAM, child
right, that's a big
sexual material.
So they're coming up with justifications.
Those are the reasons. I think in this case, that's the main one. Child,
and they're convincing the voting public that this is a good idea. Basically, people are essentially.
So this is it. It's been a few times. This has been attempted to go through. The last one was last week. They needed 65% of the EU to approve. And they were on track to get 65% until literally the day before the German parliament changed their mind at the last moment and they didn't get to 65%. But they're going to try again in December. And they're going to keep trying until this passes. In the UK, you're seeing the HMRC, which is equivalent to your, I don't know, is it inland revenue for taxes? What's your tax authority called?
Like the IRS?
IRS.
Yeah.
It's the Inland Revenue, isn't it? So
Internal Revenue Service. Yeah.
Internal Revenue, sorry. Yeah. No. So you have the HMRC in the UK. And they have instantiated the policy. This is to do with money now, because there's money and communication. Whereby they are going to, from the 1st of January, if anybody does a transaction on a cryptocurrency exchange, not just a Bitcoin exchange, the cryptocurrency exchange will have to provide all the information, including all historical information, to the HMRC, currently the IRS. But they've stated recently, a few weeks ago, they've gone further and they said that what they're going to do as well, I've been public about it, is that they're going to use that information to monitor all of these users' social media. They're going to monitor their Twitter, their Instagram, their Snapchat, their so on, with AI. And they're going to cross-reference to see if the lifestyle presented, the AIs are going to see if the lifestyle presented on their social media of the last 5 years is correlated or discorrelated to their banking and cryptocurrency behavior. So do they have the money to be able to afford the things that from their bank accounts to what they did? And if they don't,
then they get audited, basically.
They're equivalent of audited, yeah. There'll be a context to explain how you're able to afford this based on this. So that's happening in the UK. And you're seeing, if you monitor country by country by country, I'm actually considering like maybe some sort of quarterly paper on the state of privacy, because we're seeing more and more, we're seeing more and more transgressions. But here's the point. A lot of the people we deal with are people, our products for everybody everywhere. But a lot of the early adoption is people living in disempowered communities, people who don't have power. So it could be communities in the global south, and I can talk about some of those. But
it makes sense. There's probably demand for your product in these places, in the most like freedom infringed places.
And there's people who are living under the yoke of authoritarian regimes and so on, and they're effectively living in the future, in this future where
it's dark.
And for those, it is dark, but that's the reality. If you look at the trajectory, unfortunately, for the last century, the number of democracy in the world was on the rise. And that changed about 10 to 15 years ago. The number of autocracies started to increase. This is when people started to find the internet and they started to work and collude with, and work with each other, the dictators and and despots. And we started seeing a number of democracy be in decline. The numbers of autocracies are on the rise. And also many democracies are showing more and more autocratic-like behaviors, like nationalizing companies, for example, buying 10% shares in big tech companies, leading,
crazy,
because they're seeing the playbook of these authoritarian regimes, and it's sort of working. And I think, well, maybe we can have a little bit, but the light version.
The light version of authoritarianism.
So you're seeing that happen, and so you just have to look at, just like when, back in the 80s and 90s, when you guys maybe were all sort of like glints in your parents' eyes. Everybody would look to Japan to see, well, what because Japan was a tech forward country, and so if you want to know what it was going to be like in the US or in countries in Europe, just look at Japan, and we'll be there in 5 years.
Right.
Now you look at what
China.
are the growth. Yeah, if you want to look at what the future is, look at there, and we'll be there in 5-10 years.
Wow.
So it's become more and more important to be able to provide freedom technology, and that's technology that's decentralized, so it can't just be shut down with a flick of a switch. Go to one organization, one centralized organization, and it's secure so that people can use it safe in the knowledge that they will be able to maintain their privacy, their power through privacy.
Right. And I think this is probably the thing that people most understand about your company, Fedimint, the underlying open source protocol, et cetera, is that you guys are clearly focused on communities in primarily the developing world, where you do have people who are like literally fighting for their freedom. I mean, this seems like your marketing strategy, your go-to-market strategy has been very focused on those communities, is what it seems like. That's very unique to every other one of these scaling solutions. I mean, to some extent, I think Lightning has done a little bit of that, but not as targeted as you guys. You guys are really focused on those communities.
So I would say that our product is for everybody in the world, but we're a commercial organization, and we're also a very mission-driven organization. And this is one of those few areas where it's aligned, in that if we focus on the people who are the most disempowered, it helps us actually build a product fit for purpose.
Yeah.
The problem is if you're...
Well, and there's also demand, right? I mean, to your point,
you have real demand, real users, and you get real requirements. And so you end up building a product that actually solves real purposes. The problem is, I mean, I love going to events like TabConf and so on, but often we'll try to build features for our friends who are all living... We're not even first world problems. This is sort of like the top end of the top end first world problems we're dealing with. So we want to make sure that we can reduce the time it takes to rebalance our Lightning node. No one in the real world has that problem.
Well, and
instead,
arguably,
it's like how can I receive aid in an environment where I receive aid in a matter of moments, where I can maintain privacy, and if I get it wrong, I will be caught, imprisoned, tortured, and killed. That's a real requirement. Not how can I rebalance a node with and be able to keep track of the number of sats per second. I mean, this is such a even in the UK or Europe or US. No real person has that requirement. Right.
I mean, I also think, just as a practical matter, though, this is maybe the reason why something like Zcash didn't take off, is because they actually kind of they didn't. To my understanding, there wasn't like a huge push the way that you guys, I think, are successfully executing towards making sure that the technology gets to the folks who need it the most. It was, kind of very much, I think, focused on selling it to Westerners, right? And Westerners don't need it as much right now at this moment.
Yeah, but and I think if you see it in the demographics of our team, our team is very multicultural. Gender-wise, it's very mixed. None of that was by purpose. We do not have, we really are against any sort of profiling and so on. But it's just about the fact that we need to be where the customer is at. We meet people where they are.
Makes sense.
And we just ask them, what is your requirement? And I, being an entrepreneur, this is Fedi, because Fedi was designed to sort of commercialize Fedimint and try and build a product that actually solves problems for real people. And the right decision we made right at the beginning is we're going to take a user-centered design approach. So we go to the user and ask them, what do you need? We had a hypothesis, and we brought it to the user, and we explained, here's our hypothesis. And I estimated it would take 6 months to tune the product and be ready to go. 3 years later, we've rewrote almost every aspect of the product. We had to build complete new systems. Many of the parts of the Fedi app, small parts, would be whole companies for other people.
Yeah.
We had to build a full Bitcoin-backed stable assets discrete log contract system.
I want to talk about that.
Because we can't use a stable coin.
Yeah.
Because no stable coin will be able to operate on a truly private platform.
Right.
Because KYC stable coins, you should call them what they are. They're KYC coins.
Right.
So they cannot, and I've had lots of conversations with them, they cannot list on something that's actually truly private.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't allow them to actually fulfill the regulatory obligations that they will be forced to submit. So we had to create our own one that was backed by Bitcoin, not because we wanted to, but that was 2.5 years of development.
But you have to.
And we have to realize that these communities have to have mechanisms where they can congregate and organize around money together. So we had to build something called multi-spend, which is an entire capability to send money. We have chats within the app, encrypted chat.
Yep.
But instead of sending money to individuals, you can also send money to groups. So there could be a group of 500 people. And within the group, you can choose 50 to be voters. And out of the 50, 30 have to vote. And then you can talk in the group about how to spend money. The money can be sent to the group. And you can have a whole conversation around it, send images and so on. And once you've agreed, someone can request a withdrawal, and then it could be voted on to send that money to them. That's an entire functionality. Again, that's like 18, 20 months of development.
Oh, there's so much going on in terms of development here.
No one in the West would ask about that functionality. There's people who are trying to deal with it. But it will be useful for anyone, anywhere, eventually.
All right, guys, I want to take a quick break to thank you for watching and remind you to click the follow button on my profile if you want more Bitcoin technical deep dives like this. I also want to give a shout out to my partners for making this show possible. My leading partner, Best in Slot, just released the programmability module for BRC20, making the execution of smart contracts possible for the protocol. I know that's been long awaited by the BRC20 community. Alongside this release, Best in Slot put out what is arguably the most sophisticated DEX for trading Bitcoin native assets called Coin Cooker, which I also highly recommend checking out if you want to dive into the BRC20 trading game and get started executing smart contracts on Bitcoin. I'd also like to thank Cetrea, building one of the leading implementations of a BitVN style bridge for Bitcoin. Cetrea is building what I think could become the canonical Bitcoin rollup, enabling programmability, scaling. Really anything is possible with a trust minimized bridge, which is the unique value prop of these BitVM style rollups on Bitcoin. Lastly, I'm thrilled to announce my newest partner, Spark, which is the leading state chains protocol on Bitcoin. State chains builds upon what was made possible by the Lightning Network for payments, but without the liquidity constraints and the UX challenges that often make self-custodial Lightning impractical. Spark is also led by one of the leading payments infrastructure teams on the planet, including founders from PayPal, Facebook. They're incredibly well positioned to turn Bitcoin into a true institutional standard for payment systems around the world, and I couldn't be more excited to support what they're up to. All right, on that note, let's get back to the show.
I want to circle back specifically the stability module because I think it's really important, especially for the communities that you're servicing with Fedi, which is the kind of the application layer that your company is building on top of, again, the open source protocol that is Fedimint. But before I do that, I just wanted to...
We've segued so much. This is super fun, but...
You're right,
still remember Casey. Remember Casey. That's a funny story.
Well, I was going to say, right, we should, I guess, well, I was going to say, we're going to come back to the protocol landia in a minute, the tech side in a minute, but just to illustrate a little bit these communities that we've now referenced several times, can you give a couple of like hard examples of communities that have like really, really like benefited from using Fedi/Fedimint? I mean, like, or you know, communities that are using this, like, what's the best example?
I don't know, because some of the ones who have benefited the most, it's not. I'm not sure I can talk about them too much in public.
Fair.
Unfortunately.
Give like a theoretical example of like
a theoretical
this is
example
the
is an organization which is supporting activists in a certain country, an authoritarian regime.
Okay.
And
so
that authoritarian regime is controlling access to communication, controlling access to money.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to organize peaceful protests against them,
you'll get cut off. You'll lose your access to your money, to your
and if you're
communication.
quite influential, you might find yourself to be detained,
in prison or killed
or detained. they need mechanisms to communicate and to transact with privacy. It's not just a nice to have.
Right. It's a matter of survival.
And these people are not technical. So I think our app is one of the easiest to use apps out there. It's still way too complicated for these guys.
Interesting.
So if we think our apps is still way based on, we know, and we're working hard to make it simpler and simpler, it needs to work in their own language. And the language isn't generally the normal German, French, and English. It's other languages. We're revealing stuff.
Right.
Languages
Arabic,
are common in the global south.
Right.
So if you use the app, you can see, if you see the list of languages that we support, it's not your normal list of languages.
Right.
You know? Well, not your normal list of language for a product built in the West for Western product users. Although it does support English and Portuguese and Spanish, for example.
Sure.
Because they're very
but
common.
In many instances, it might be needed by
in the
people
global south, but German isn't, so it's not there. For example.
Right. Well, and in many instances, these technologies might be needed by communities that speak incredibly niche, rarely spoken languages.
Yeah, and sometimes we have a few niche languages because we add languages in order of demand.
Makes
basically.
sense.
So then but one thing is they need something that's incredibly simple to use. And we just done a redesign recently where we took out a lot of the words. So it's just so much more. It's just pictures, and you can work out what to do from pictures. And so
wow, that's amazing. That's super interesting.
And we've still got a lot of work to do, but it's a process of, again, feedback where we meet people where they are, and they're driving the advancement. So if you use our app, you realize it doesn't operate the way almost any other app operates in the space, which is more, it's a wallet, 12-word backup. 12-word backup is a problem.
It's already too much.
Straight away, as soon as you have the 12-word backup problem, you've failed. You need a mechanism for people to be able to back up without using words. Especially because if English isn't their own language, the 12-word backup system is English anyway, and all that sort of stuff. And this
is such an important point.
And also, where am I going to store it? If you're in the West, I'll store it in my bank vault, or I'll store it with my friend. Do I even have a house? So if I have no house and no bank vault, where am I going to store this 12 words securely?
Yep.
Which is my money. The 12 words, we sometimes have this sort of cognitive dissonance saying, I've got this hardware wallet with which will explode itself if someone touches it and doesn't put in, and I've got biometric scanning and all this security, and it's a $6,000 device. And then I store the backup on the 12 words, and I store that underneath my fridge or something. But the 12 words is also your money.
Yeah.
So it's like having this Fort Knox like security, and then you have an open door at the back, which is the 12 words. So we again created a whole functionality called social backup, where because you have a federation of trusted guardians, and that's the thing that's key from the innovation that Eric made over the original eCash protocol, is he made it federated. So there wasn't any single point of trust for a given eCash mint.
This is key.
And this is key. So that means, but these people then could be trusted members of your community. Let's say you're an aid agency that's supporting a certain group of activists. Well, and you're raising money in the West and delivering it to help they could be journalists, etc., on the ground, and you're funding them and helping them. Well, you're already raising money to give them the money. You and members of your organization are perfect people to be people who run a mint, because you're unlikely to steal the money that you've given to the person.
Right.
So when people think about collusion, it's just in this low trust society that we have in the West. But if I'm literally giving you aid, I'm not incentivized to steal the money I've just given to you, for example, because I'm literally giving you the money. I've set up to give you the money, and you're my friends, family, people I've supported and all my life. So you can set up a federation, but you still want it to be federated, because you don't want a situation where one person, and the biggest risk, by the way, we always talk about collusion. The biggest risk, that is by far a distant second or third on the list of risks. Just like when I ran an exchange, some people got hacked. Some people lost their keys or their passwords. What percentage do you think lost their passwords?
Oh, way more lost their passwords.
It's like 95%. That's the big risk.
Right.
People doing dumb stuff by accident. People being humans.
User error is the biggest risk.
So if I'm running a single mint, The biggest risk is not me being hacked, not me being a bad actor. It's me just forgetting my password.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing that will happen frequently. And if it's federated and it's like 7 out of 10 people are needed, it would require 3 people to lose their keys in a matter of before I won't be able to access. So and it will happen. They will forget their keys. But if you have a single mint structure, you forget your keys, you've lost all the money of your entire community. So, even though you didn't want to, you would just have lost it because of not incompetence, but just being human.
So do you solve, so the no seed phrase, and by the way, my mind was personally blown when I realized, like the concept of a seed phrase is so English centric. It's wild. Like this is so not a global technology already.
It does have translations, but no one uses them. Everybody uses just the English.
Yeah.
The official standard does have 4 or 5 languages, but everybody only uses the English.
That in and of itself blew my mind. But yeah, I was gonna say, how do you solve? If
you already have this group of trusted guardians to run the mint in a federated manner, they can do many other things. They can operate trustlessly the discrete log contract for the stable balance. They can also provide what we call social backup and recovery, whereby I can always download the 12 words if I want to, but the alternative is I can record an image of myself with a video of myself saying the word Fedi, for example.
Okay.
And after recording that is hashed, and the actual image, the video is not sent to the Guardians, but the hash of the video is sent to the Guardians.
Oh, interesting.
Along with a share of my key.
Oh, interesting.
An encrypted share of my key.
Okay.
And so they're storing encrypted shares of my keys amongst the Guardians.
So they just have that as backup, basically.
Yes, but they can't use that even if they colluded.
Right, they only have a piece of the key.
It's also encrypted. They'll have to decrypt it.
Right.
And then I keep the video, and I can store that video in multiple places.
Right, anywhere you want.
Anywhere I want, because that video plus my own visage is the key to unlock the money.
Is this something that becomes riskier with like deep fakes? Is this something that you're concerned about?
Well, actually, by accident, this is deepfake proof, because you can operate this however you want. You can operate it over the internet, and then you have some risk with deepfakes. But that, by the way, is going to be a ticking time bomb for all online services.
Oh, it's going to be wild. I'm so nervous.
But the recommended way to operate it is to go up to the Guardians in person. You show them the video. And in fact, actually, you share the video by QR code between phone to phone, and then they will see the video. They will see the video of you saying Fedi, and they will see you right in front of them and say, "Are you the same person?"
Oh, so I see. So this can happen IRL potentially.
Exactly. It's not KYC. It's KYF.
Oh, amazing.
Know your friend. Know your family.
Amazing.
And then once they've confirmed it's you, they click a button, and then that video will be hashed, and that will locate the shard. They won't be able to know which shard is yours until they've got the actual file. In
order to be deepfake proof, then, do you have to be able to have this IRL relationship?
The only way you can be truly deepfake proof is with
an IRL component.
Yeah, but you can also do it over the internet as well, but then you have the same risk that every other system which we use to recover, which will be, the bigger risk will be all of the exchanges, by the way, where they and even then with an exchange, you go to one person, one member of customer service, and they will look at your video and your passport and then say, yeah, you're good.
Well, and something unique about Fedi and Fedimint broadly is, like, there's sort of this, I don't know if there's an incentive or if it's just the way, maybe a benefit of having a smaller federation, but these sort of local community federations are such that IRL is possible.
Yeah, I think there's 2 styles. There's local community federations, and then there's these global federations where which we're starting to see a lot of interest, where all the parties to the federation don't know each other. Even the Guardians don't know each other. And because they don't know each other, they can't collude.
Right.
And the only way you can conclude is being public about the fact that they are a member of, hey, I'm a member of this federation. Could someone collude with me? But they put themselves at wrench attack risk.
Yeah, they're incentivized not to share.
They're incentivized not to share. And the only way they can collude is by sharing. So for the larger global federations, all the parties are set up in such a way where they don't know who each other is, and then their natural incentive for privacy prevents them from collusion. And they also have the reward of earning revenues from being a federation operator, and they risk being attacked if they give up their privacy.
I mean, that makes sense. In theory, even in like a small community organized federation, though, you could still have the guardians be private, right?
Yes, but then the social backup, you would have to do it either at a distance, over screen, so that you maintain the privacy.
I see.
And then you have the deepfake risk, or you do it in person.
I see.
So
I see.
what I would imagine
So
would
it's pros
happen,
and cons.
what I'd imagine is for these larger global federations, they wouldn't enable the social backup. They may be less likely to enable the social backup service, or with a warning that it's done at a distance, so there's always a risk of deepfake. And then the smaller, more personal communities is where people would do social backup. The way Fedi, the app works, is we use the same base key for all the federations you're a member of. So even if you back it up on one of the more trusted, smaller federations, it backs up, if you're a member of 20 different federations, it effectively backs up the keys for all 20 different federations. The same 12 words or the same backup will be able to recover all the federations you're a member of. So you can use the bigger ones with a higher trust, with a higher anonymity set, maybe more functionalities, maybe more capabilities, maybe larger Lightning Gateway bandwidth for day-to-day usage, but you can use, for storing larger amounts and also doing social backup, you can use the services of the smaller, more trusted services.
I'm glad you brought up Lightning Gateway bandwidth, because my next question was going to be, are these federations interoperable, and how?
They're interoperable by Bitcoin on the main chain.
By Bitcoin and main chain, okay.
No, on main chain and by Lightning.
Okay.
So all wallets can, again, every federation is different, and they can configure their federation the way they want. They can enable on-chain deposits or withdrawals. They can enable Lightning, or they can enable stable balance, social backup, and so on. Just like you can enable different pieces of software, they can enable, we call them modules.
Right.
Fedimint modules so there's a stable balance module. There is a social backup module. There's a multi-spend module to ability to do group spending and so on.
The gateway, they're swaps, essentially. These like Lightning Bitcoin gateways are essentially swap modules that each federation can be like connected to. It's basically like
the Lightning module effectively replicates the HTLC approach for sending value over the Lightning network. So to the rest of the Lightning network, it appears like an HTLC, but it's a link in the Lightning network chain.
Okay.
The only difference is this link in the chain is near zero cost. It's instant.
Why use Bitcoin on chain if you can use Lightning in this situation? There probably isn't much of a reason.
You would use Bitcoin maybe for larger amounts, but the idea, the vast majority of people will use Lightning. If they're depositing a very large amount in, they might use Bitcoin to begin with. But then at that point, and especially, but the main thing people do with Bitcoin is to deposit in to fund the stable balance channels, or because you have to over collateralize, or to fund the Lightning channels. So the on-chain footprint is generally money moving in to fund the stable balance or being taken out. So it's going backwards and forwards to one address. Almost all the actual transactions are happening internal to a federation or over the Lightning network.
And does this, do the actual end users need to be also Lightning native in order to deal with this? Or is this all happening like Rails on the background and they don't even notice
they're using, the experience is very much like using, I'm trying to think because there's not really many products exactly like it. It's like a merger between Signal and Wallet of Satoshi, all into one app. But then also you have the ability to have multiple wallets of Satoshis you can access, provided by multiple providers. The way we think about it, it's like, think about you're in a village and you've got the town square where all the shops are, and that's where the watering hole where everybody has a conversation. We call those communities. And then also within the town or within the village, you also have a place where people store there and hold their money and so on. those are the federations. Some bigger towns could have multiple of those custodial services, some bank-like services. And some towns could be smaller, and 3 or 4 towns could be supported by one custodial service, one bank. And it depends. And that's why we separate communities, which is all about communication and commerce, versus federations, which is all about custody, and adding additional features like group spending and all these sort of monetary capabilities.
It's interesting that you mentioned like it's a combination of signal, because that was the thing that most stood out to me when I was actually using the Fedi app, was like the chat feature that you can actually spend through chat. I've never seen that before. I mean, is that like...
We were the first to do it, I think, and what's really good is people are starting to follow that, and I think and what I'm hopeful to see is over the coming year or two, it starts becoming a standard model, because really, especially eCash, which is a bearer instrument, you're sending notes through conversation. It just makes intuitive sense. Initially, there was pushback against that, but I think it's now starting to be seen as that's the UX that makes most sense. And if you just look at the space, the tech space in general, we're moving towards chat being the UX,
right?
And so,
and it's intuitive for people,
right?
It's intuitive for people who have no experience with, like, for lack of a better word, like crypto-related products and don't understand wallets and whatever. Like, you can be somebody who has no idea in one of these communities, and you probably understand how to use a chat function.
Yeah, it's in AI they call it overfitting, being overly expert at something to the point where your intuitive experience has no bearing in reality to the rest of the world. So it's interesting. In the West, we have wallet features and so on, and in the West, lots of people are really interested in the wallet features and they want to use those. But for the users who are living in the future, who are they live in chat, and so when they want to send someone money, they're a friend of them in a group. I can be talking to them, and while talking to them, in the conversation, I can click the wallet icon, send an amount, and I can instant message money to them. In the same way, I can send an emoji or a chat message or an animated GIF. I can also send them money, and it's just very natural. It's just part of the conversation. Or I can say, you owe me money, and I can send them a request. And the next time they come on, they see this person wants to send you money. And if you click accept, it will take the money out of your wallet and send them the money. So it's incredibly intuitive. It's a really powerful thing, and it works really well with eCash, because eCash is basically just information. So I don't have to worry about lightning channel liquidity. The note is the money. It's a bearer instrument. So I can if I send the money to you in a chat, I've sent you the money. It isn't like, oh, but you don't need to be online and receive. No, you receive it. In fact, we can send eCash offline. That's why you had the paper note. So that's offline eCash, because the information on the note is actual money. And so in a chat conversation where you're just sending text messages to each other, one of those text messages could be just the information for money.
So is your general point of view about Lightning that, Lightning will basically be used as this almost sort of like B2B style bloodline that will kind of service federations, and that the federations will be the consumer, right? Like Fedimints will be the consumer interface, and Lightning will be, kind of something that provides liquidity between federations. Where do you position Lightning in all of this? I think that's something that's certainly...
short answer, yes.
Okay.
the more visual answer is, imagine you're in... I don't know, it's Nevada where Las Vegas is?
Yes.
And Reno, is that in Nevada as well?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. I know a bit. So you imagine you're in Nevada, and you're in Las Vegas, and some other person's in Reno, and between them they're connected by motorways, and the motorways that connect these different cities together is the Lightning Network. And Reno and Las Vegas are these federated Fedimints, the federations. And as everybody knows, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Okay.
So within Vegas, you have full privacy. It's full privacy, whatever happens there. And with Lightning, you have pretty good privacy.
Pretty good.
Way better than on-chain, but not perfect. But if you want to send value to someone in Reno, then it means that because of the privacy of Reno and Vegas, all you know is that someone in the entire city of Vegas sent some amount of value to someone in the entire city of Reno, which is still awesome levels of privacy.
Right.
You just know some value was transferred, but you don't know.
No particular end user is really being infringed upon here. It's just the
still
guardians, essentially.
So you're still, when you combine Lightning and Fedimint, it's a marriage made in heaven. Fedimint is where holding money at rest, and within the small circle of a given community or organization or family or town or business, any form of grouping of people. And then beyond that, Lightning sends value. But it won't just be, also, realistically, it won't just be Fedimint. There will be cashew mints if you've just got a small
100%.
Small town. Or it could be if you're wealthy enough and Alex Glasstein writes a book, Check Your Financial Privilege. So if you have the financial privilege to be able to do this, but it's not just that, you have to check your technical acumen privilege. If you've got the technical acumen to do this. And you have to check your risk management privilege. If you've got the risk management skills to be able to manage your own money, then by Jeeves, you should go off and manage your own money.
Go for it, right.
But that's just not very many people.
It's just not everyone, yeah.
And it's actually irresponsible to push someone to do it when they don't have that.
Totally.
You don't want to ask your 80-year-old grandfather or grandmother who's getting severe
Losing
myopia
their memory,
to go off and start repairing and servicing their car, and then to take them and their grandchildren 80 miles an hour along the motorway.
Right.
If something happens and you convince them that it was good for them to self-service their car.
Right. So let's just say self-custody, right? Let's just say what it is. Yeah.
It's all personal responsibility.
Right.
And I'm not taking a responsibility for convincing you that you were capable of doing this. If you were capable of doing it, absolutely, it's the best. It's the Bitcoin standard.
But you have to know yourself and your limits.
You need to be. It costs more money to do that. You don't get economies of scale.
Right.
It's more complicated to do that. And you have to be able to be really good at managing risk. You have to be someone who's quite conscientious and quite...
To be sovereign, you have to be...
And most people are not very careful.
No. To be sovereign, you have to be so responsible and not just like, from a moral ethic, but you have to be capable of that level of responsibility. It
was a tough lesson for me because I ran an exchange for 10 years nearly. And I tried every day. We were one of the few to try and get people to self-custody. And someone who went on to become a very good friend, I recently got married earlier this year, and she was one of the people who traveled all the way to Kenya to go for this wedding, who was a customer of my exchange, was one of the people who I asked to self-custody. But after many years, she didn't self-custody. And I also, look, I've tried everything. We've tried to make it as simple as possible. Or automatic withdrawals, all this sort of stuff.
Right.
We have help sections on the site and all this sort of stuff. And I'm even like a friend of you, so I can personally mentor you on how to do it. And she goes, look, I understand now about Bitcoin. I understand what you're saying. And I understand I should ideally self-custody. But the thing is this, Obi, I trust you more than I trust myself.
Right.
And that was a big
aha moment.
And that was actually, that led, if you watch Sherlock from the Sherlock Holmes series with Benedict Cumberbatch, one of the scenes is he has this thing, he talks about his mind palace, not his mind palace. I sort of stuck that thought in my mind palace. And many years later, after selling CoinFloor, I realized that I started thinking, especially when I saw Fedimint, I thought, well, who do people trust more than they trust me? And I actually asked her, who do you trust more than me? And then she said, well, I guess the person who convinced me to go to CoinFloor was my son. Wow. And if whatever exchange he told me, I would have gone for. So implicitly, I trust him more than you. Right. So the key was there's first party, yourself. Right. Third party, a stranger. Right. I.e., regulated Coinbase or something like that. Right. And then there's second party, someone you have a personal relationship who's not yourself. Right. Friends, family.
And these are people
that you trust more. Because ultimately, you enter that exchange after finding out Bitcoin from a friend and then asking him for a recommendation.
Well,
and whatever they recommended, you went with. So implicitly, you trusted them.
And this was the core value prop that I remember hearing about with Fedimint several years ago, was this idea that you could essentially appoint people that you trust into the roles of guardians or custodians of this money. And that is like one of the absolutely key features.
And that's the core for the most important, most valuable communication and money. You do that. But what we've learned since then is that there's also this bootstrapping requirement and also a requirement for larger federations. And for those ones, it's the opposite. You go for the one where you have the most confidence that all the guardians don't know each other, because that prevents collusion. You have to know to collude, and then the incentive for privacy
and wrench attacks it prevents, right?
Yeah, well, it prevents wrench attacks, but the incentive for privacy prevents them game theoretically prevents them from ever revealing the information needed to be able to collude. So in that sense, what I like about that is very much Bitcoin-like in a sense. I don't want to go too far here, but Bitcoin-like in the sense that Bitcoin was the first successful cryptocurrency, not because of the cryptography, which had already existed for many years, but it was the combining of that cryptography with game theory.
Right.
And game theory where the incentives are aligned. So the more it's attacked, the stronger it gets. As Charlie Munger says, show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome.
Right.
And here, the desire for privacy from all parties, not just the users, but also the guardians, if you start them from a position of privacy, they will want to maintain that because privacy is a superpower. Privacy is security. And that will mean that the more you worry about wrench attacks and so on, the more disinclined you are to reveal your privacy, in which case you cannot collude, but you still are able to earn the revenue from being a guardian. So those are the two scenarios that work for these sort of anonymous cypherpunk federations where no one knows each other and it's fully private. And then the exact opposite, where these family federations where everybody has a very close, trusted relationship.
Before we wrap up, I wanted to make sure you mentioned Alex Gladstein, which was something else I wanted to mention. You guys have a very strong relationship with HRF. How do you guys work together, or how do they support what you're up to? You know, are they advising you guys at all around like communities to potentially be involved with? Like, what's your relationship with the HRF
Alex
like?
Alex is a great friend.
Okay.
And so I heard about Fedimint. I bumped into Eric, and I became the biggest cheerleader for Fedimint as a protocol. This is the fundamental protocol. It's like Lightning as a protocol. And I talked about it in a number of places, and I ended up being in Bitcoin Miami at the invite of Matt Odell.
Nice.
And so did Eric.
Privacy Maxi, Matt Odell.
Yeah, and he wanted us myself and Eric, to be the last talks of the day on the open source stage, because to finish up the event.
Wow.
Eric did a panel or a fireside chat with Eric and Casey Rodemo.
No.
To
we're
discuss,
circling back now.
We're circling around.
Perfect
We're circling
timing.
around. Got to do it. I'm a professional.
Okay, so Casey Rodemo was on the stage for this privacy talk.
Yeah, because he was interested in the protocol, and he was discussing, and so they were discussing Fedimint. And it was a discussion. So the way
I
it worked,
I actually went to this talk.
So the way it worked was I did my initial talk, which set the scene of how powerful Fedimint is and how it's this protocol that could scale to Bitcoin to billions of users with privacy. And so we retain privacy and we become more decentralized at this higher layer.
Right.
And we can support billions of users and have a user experience which is actually really simple to use. And so I set the scene. And then after that, Eric came on stage and he'd asked Casey to come on with him, and they just discussed Fedimint at a more technical level.
I was there. This is a hilarious.
And while there, also he'd mentioned afterwards. We were asking him, what are you working on? I'm mentioning on this. I'm working on this idea of enumerating all this that's on the Bitcoin blockchain. It's just an idea. So he hadn't even called it ordinals then. I don't think. No, I'm not sure he'd named it ordinals then, or he maybe just named it.
I don't think he had come up with the name yet. No, but I vividly remember this because he started a podcast recently with his, not co-founder, but like effective Aaron Redwin.
Hell podcast.
Hell Money. And funny story, it was at that talk, which was my first Bitcoin conference ever. I was with Aaron in the audience, and Aaron was saying that she wanted to start a podcast. And I had previously spoken to Casey, and he had said he also wanted to start a podcast. I said, "Oh, Aaron, you should talk to Casey." And that is how Aaron and Casey started their podcast.
It all happened there. And it's also at that event.
Conferences are magic.
Also at that event, two people came on. Steve Lee came along because this was one guy working on it by himself. And then eventually I was the first follower, the whole thing of the first follower.
Oh my gosh.
And then after that talk, Steve Lee came up and said, okay, because I'd been mentioning this idea, you should come to my talk. I was saying, you should come to my talk. And I was actually saying this was going to be I promised Eric, this would be the last, I was promoting it for a year, 6 months or so. But I just sold my company and I wanted to take, 5-6 years off and just chill.
Yeah.
And I said, I'll do one more talk. This will be the last one and then I'm done. And he goes, no problem. Thanks. You've already helped a lot. But I said, so let me get a lot of people to come to this and then it's done. I did my best job on the talk and Spiral, and then Steve Lee came along and goes, okay, I get what you're saying. This is really powerful. Spiral will provide grants.
Oh my God.
And then a number of the key first employees of Fedi were also in that talk. I didn't find out till a few weeks later they were in the talk and they joined.
Oh, man.
And finally, Alex Gladstein was in that and he was like, okay, this is incredible. You need to come to the Oslo Freedom Forum, which is the marquee event for the Human Rights Foundation in Oslo.
Right? That's right.
You need to come to the Oslo Freedom Forum in a couple of months' time. He goes, 2 problems with that. I wanted to take some time off. I've been working like crazy for nearly a decade on an exchange and did so many different things.
God had other plans for you.
And 2, Norway. That's cold, right? I don't like cold weather. And then he introduced me to Frida Nambarema, who was there, who's now since then running Africa Bitcoin Conference and a few others. And I went,
then your life was over.
let me go along. And I went along after hearing this story. Myself and Eric were hearing this idea of enumerating all the sats on the Bitcoin blockchain. We looked at each other and goes, okay, that's an interesting art project, but that's Casey,
Yeah.
And we
who knew the next year would be wild for everyone involved.
1 year later, it became crazy, and there was a period where blockchain fees went through the roof.
Yeah.
And then people started the conversation about the need for layer 2 scaling came up, and everybody was really excited about things like Fedimint and scaling with eCash because of ordinals. So
exactly.
So a year later, I was on the same open source stage and saying that we were here a year ago, or it was a year or 2 years later, I can't remember, but it was on the same open source stage and saying when we first launched Fedimint or made it aware to the world, it was at the stage and Casey was there. Who knew that X years later, because of these projects that he'd been talking about, it created so much traffic on Bitcoin that it actually helped accelerate the conversation for eCash again. So that's why I'm saying there was 2 contexts with him.
No, it's perfect.
But I went to finish up. I went to the Oslo Freedom Forum. Alex convinced me. And while there, I heard the stories of some of the bravest men and women I'd ever had a chance to meet. And I realized that Fedimint was the product that could serve and support them. And no other product in the Bitcoin at that time. And I hope that changes. And I still think today it is the case. No other product can have a chance of being able to support them. And we're talking about billions of people around the world.
Yeah.
These activists represent countries that are the majority of the world right now. So over 70% of the world is under the yoke of an authoritarian regime.
Wow.
We here in the US
we're the minority.
We're the minority. We're the edge case.
Wow.
And democracies are in decline. So it's just becoming more and more of an edge case. So we're serving the global majority. And what I decided from then is I realized I've been lucky. I grew up on a council estate. I don't know what you call that, like projects or whatever, a council estate in London. I was lucky. I was pretty book smart, and I managed to work my way up as CTO and then CEO and so forth. But and then with this exchange and did well from that. But I'm lucky, and I also realized that that until everybody, this was the realization for me, until everyone on this planet is free, no one truly is. And that's something I say again and again now, and I every opportunity, because this is the most important thing to understand. Until everyone on this planet is free, no one truly is. And with that realization, I decided to commit myself to doing everything possible in my own small way to making everyone on this planet free. And I'm very fortunate to have an incredible group of people that I work with. The original founders of Fedi and the original team were myself, Eric, Justin Moon, you might know, Skylar Westby as well, Renata Rodriguez, and they all, again, shared that vision. Skylar does a ton of design work for many, but he has a special place in his heart for HRF. Justin Moon is now heading up HRF's AI initiatives, and obviously the rest of the team. Renata is still the most gregarious powerhouse with communities. You know, when she goes to Nigeria, the joke is she's more Nigerian than me. You know, she's like, wherever she is, loved by everybody and helping, becoming the heart of the community. And Eric is as the chief maintainer of the Fedimint project, and he's built an incredible team of engineers around him. And they've recently added a feature called IRO, for example, which allows a Fedimint to run without the need for domain DNS anymore. Instead, you can locate a Fedimint server on the internet via a public key.
Cool.
So again, making it more censorship resistant, because we have people who have really being attacked. It's not in theory, you know. So we have to keep working. And by the way, we have a long, both at the Fedimint protocol level and at the Fedi app level. So you should think about us as building this. We call it a wallet for simplicity, but it's a wallet with encrypted chat, with mini apps, so you can extend
it's like a financial services app.
Financial services app, but wallet for simplicity, because for our users, it just gets too complicated.
Yeah.
We're building the best app we can based on meeting people where they are, and Eric and the other people working on the Fedimint protocol are building the most cypherpunk, anti-fragile protocol that they can, because it actually has to be used by real people today. What we all believe, though, is if someone comes out with a better solution that has a lower trust requirement,
you'll pivot.
We'll just pivot.
Yeah.
We have we'll use the best thing, but we have people who need it right now.
Right.
So we use what's best for today. And that's the thing that people sometimes misunderstand, that because they're so bought into an idea, they don't understand how people can easily pivot. We will use the best freedom technology
that exists.
We combine the most fundamental human technology, which is community, with freedom technologies like Bitcoin, as long as it remains private, like Bitcoin, like
Fedimint, the open source protocol,
like Lightning,
whatever,
like Nostr at this point in time, and many others. And we've integrated all those functionalities, and we'll just keep upgrading to the best. But we won't upgrade when it's nerd sniped and it's just been invented. Because a bug
needs
in
to be battle tested.
A bug in our system means people lose. People are seriously affected.
Right.
So that's why we have to be pretty.
Right. This is not research. This is real practice.
But what we're doing behind the scenes is we'll fund some of that research.
Sure.
So that at some point in the future,
that's cool.
We can replace.
I love that. Yeah. Oh my gosh, what an amazing place to conclude.
I feel super blessed to be doing it.
This was an awesome conversation. Thank you. I am so glad that we made this happen. This almost didn't happen, you guys, and we made it happen. So
I'm glad.
Thank you so much.